temperatures are getting warmer and warmer. This means children and maybe the rest of the family might want to be spending time outside in the water. But are they prepared when it comes to being safe in and near the water? This is where the YMCA comes into play. The organization has a Safety Around Water program, and joining us this morning to explain more about the program is Aquatics Director of YMCA of Greater Houston, Kennedy Conley. Kennedy, good morning. Thank you so much for coming by.
Morning. How are you?
So far, so good. How are you?
Wonderful.
You know, when you think back to fond memories of growing up, I would say 9 times out of 10, those memories are around water. I grew up on a lake. There was always water around. And I remember my mother taught us at a very young age, the water is not your friend. It's something that you can be friendly with, but it's not your friend. Talk to us about the basics. Why water safety is so important to people of all ages.
Yeah, so drowning is the second leading cause of death in children under the age of 14 in the state of Texas. And it is 100% preventable. By taking formal swim lessons, you reduce that risk of drowning by 88%. It's very important that we have our children in these programs so we can reduce that risk and they can learn a life skill.
Yeah. And especially here in the South, you know, it gets so hot, humid.
Yes.
It's refreshing to go into the water, whether that be the pool, the lake, the river, the ocean. I came to Texas from Florida, and I was surprised in Florida the number of drowning incidents that occurred and the number of people who live in Florida who do not know how to swim. It's actually heartbreaking when you think about that. And people of all ages can learn how to swim, regardless of how old you are.
Yes, you can get your child into the water as soon as the doctor tells you that it's okay. It's usually about 6 months after they're born. Yeah, and the YMCA has swim lesson programs for infants, youths, teens, adults. Recently, we just registered a woman, and she's about 80 years old.
Isn't
and
that something?
Yes, she's learning how to swim.
For the first time in her life.
Yes, first time getting in the water with an instructor and learning how to swim, and she has this renewed sense of freedom, and she's taking our water exercise classes, and she's making friends, and she's getting
That's
out
amazing.
there. It's wonderful, yes.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Tips for parents who want to bring their children into the water. You say 6 months old, possibly, and I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, that's so young.
Yes, it is. It's very young, so you want to make sure that you're always in an area that's designated to swim, that's being supervised by a lifeguard, that your children ask permission before they get in the water. Something that we instill in our swim lesson program is that they come and ask you before they get in the water, that you have swim with a buddy. If you need a life jacket, make sure it's Coast Guard approved. Check the inside that it says U.S. Coast Guard approval.
It'll have a seal, yeah.
Yeah, and you just gotta make sure you have a water watcher and that you know your kids are in the water. Drowning is silent and quick. It's very little water disturbance that children can slip under the water.
Yeah. Having a water watcher. When we were little, we were not allowed to go in the water without an adult. We also were not allowed to go in the water for up to an hour after we had a meal. My mother would never let us go in the water immediately after eating. Talk to us about specifics when it comes to this program.
Our swim lesson program in particular, it has different group swim lesson opportunities for infants, youth, teens, adults. We have a Safety Around Water program. It's our community outreach program where we go into the community and we teach people life-saving skills so they can have a fun and safe summer. We also have semi-private lessons, private lessons, stroke booster classes, as well as swim teams.
Yeah. When I first moved to Houston, I did a story within a minority community because stats show people within marginalized communities are more likely to drown than people in other communities. And so it was an effort to get these initiatives inside these neighborhoods. Talk to us about the signs of drowning. As you mentioned, it can be silent.
Yes, it can. Oftentimes, the early warning signs of a potential drowning victim is their head is tilted back in the water and they're really focused on their nose and mouth being out of the water.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're going to look towards the closest source of assistance. They're not going to be splashing about. They're not going to move forward in the water. They're kind of in one spot, and they're not going to, most likely not going to shout out for help because they're focused on that, using their energy to breathe and keep their nose and mouth out of the water.
Yeah, and it's very frightening. It's frightening for the person in the middle of the situation, but it's also frightening for people, for onlookers. And so it's important to know what to do in the event something like that happens.
Yes, if something like that happens and there are no lifeguards around, always reach or throw, don't go. It's very important. You don't want to create a situation where nobody has a chance to be rescued. So ring buoys like the one behind us, throw it, reach out with your hand, use a noodle, and get them to the side of the pool or the body of water. If you need any further assistance, call 911.
What if it's an infant, though? I'm thinking this works for someone, for a child or a teenager, an adult. But if it's an infant in distress, still do not enter, do not go.
Go and get them. Reach. However,
Okay.
hold on to the edge of the pool and reach and grab them.
Okay.
Yes.
All good advice. Kennedy Conley, thank you so much for stopping by this morning.
Thank
a really
you.
important conversation to be having as we head into the summer months.